Right, welcome back. The week ahead continues. In other news now, the reinstated Johannesburg Mayor, Dr Mpho Phalatse, could face another motion of no confidence in a matter of days. Our Speaker of the Johannesburg Council, Collin Magubela, has given notice of a council meeting on the 3rd of November, on Thursday, with the motion of no confidence against Phalatse amongst the agenda items. Now, Phalatse was reinstated as mayor after a High Court judgment found that her ousting during a no-confidence motion last month had been unlawful. Perhaps for more on this, we are joined by legal expert Reitumetse Phiri. Reitumetse, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon, Liesel, and thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It seems like quarter three is really, unfolding in unexpected ways, perhaps more so than one. And I wonder, as we look at, what's transpired this week alone, and perhaps, Dr Mpho Phalatse returning to office, at this juncture, at this point, do you see her holding the mayoral position until the end of her tenure?
Well, I think it will be a little bit tough unless something shifts politically, because if we look at the judgment of the South Gauteng High Court that reinstated her to her office, there were really, the issue was really based on the technicalities around how the agenda was put together by the committee that put that agenda together. It wasn't correct. The second aspect related to the ability for the councillors to actually consider the motion. 16 hours notice wasn't sufficient, as the court, articulated. And thirdly, it was around the ability within the actual council meeting to have a proper debate, which is, what the court said is important for the democratic project. So if you look at those three aspects and you assume that, this latest motion has been given in time, was properly put together by the committee properly as correct, and you'd assume that that meeting will be undertaken within the constitutional mandate, as the Johannesburg High Court had put it, then you definitely don't see her holding on to that position for much longer.
Right. So on the back of what you've just echoed, given the technicalities that were outlined in the judgment, what is the likelihood then of the second motion of no confidence getting the green light in the coming week?
I think we'd have to, look at what is required for that motion of no confidence to actually make its way into council and be voted on properly. Obviously, I'm not certain as to whether the procedures have been fully followed. So if you look at Rule 95, which basically says that the PC committee must consider that agenda item and must do so in a correct position. So I don't know whether they considered it properly in accordance with Rule 95 and whether it was actually correct, which was the first stumbling block in the previous motion of no confidence. I know from a timing perspective that this time there has been reasonable time that has been issued to the councillors to consider the second notice of no confidence. So in that respect, you would say that at least they've ticked that particular box. Now, the question is, what will transpire during the council meeting while this motion of no confidence is being debated? Are we going to see councillors not being offered an opportunity to debate, as was the case in the previous meeting? And if we're going to see that, then it won't pass. But certainly, if the Speaker this time corrects that particular aspect, then it would probably succeed, assuming that at least the first hurdle was done correctly this time as well.
Well, speaking about, those technicalities then and the moves going forward, I wonder how you would weigh in on how this second vote of no confidence is likely then to impact, Dr Mpho Phalatse's political career holistically going forward, just given, the timing of our country heading into elections and the state of our democracy as a whole.
I think what the Johannesburg High Court pointed out, which is really important to bear in mind, was that even these council meetings, in as much as you can get the requisite majority of votes for any motion, it cannot be undertaken for an ulterior purpose or a motive that is not a great motive. So, I think it is concerning when you look at the judgment of the Johannesburg High Court that politics is being played in this particular way, and sometimes in violation of the law. So I'm not sure what will happen of Dr. Phalatse and her political career as a result of this, but certainly I think it was the right thing for her to do, to go back to court and challenge this process, if only to ensure that the law can support democratic processes, and it would be clear to councillors what is required to ensure that democratic processes can be followed, notwithstanding the political skullduggery that they engage in. So I'm not sure what will come of her politically, but certainly I think it was the right move to at least contribute to this discussion of what is required to ensure that these council decisions are actually undertaken within the prescripts of the law.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in conclusion, as we look at what transpired, in her scenario, perhaps even looking at the dynamics headed going forward in terms of, coalition partners amongst opposition parties. When we look at the DA, its coalition partners, how would you weigh in? Would you say that they will be able to defeat this motion of no confidence? I'm asking this because we obviously have to look at the dynamics unfolding with coalitions and perhaps how feasible it is for the country, perhaps in service delivery, perhaps in upholding our democracy as a whole.
I think this has really put a spotlight on the need for the coalition landscape in this country to mature. We certainly aren't the only country who's experiencing coalitions, but, in European countries, Germany, Italy, coalition politics is how they govern. And there are, countless laws and rules that ensure that these coalitions are stable and they can actually deliver services to the people. So I think where we are, particularly what the COJ issue is showing, is that our coalition rules and regulations are not mature enough to ensure that these coalitions can remain stable and ensure that services are delivered to the people. So I think it's good that it's in here and that we can think about it and think about where is our politics going, given it seems that, we're likely to be, from a political space, in a coalition space in the near future. So I'm not sure if they will beat the motion of no confidence. I don't know what is happening from a political perspective, but I think we should appreciate that, as a country, at this particular point, we're not mature enough to ensure these coalitions are stable, and we should actually look at putting rules in place to ensure that coalitions can actually govern and deliver services for the people.
Well, Reitumetse, as you and I rub our imaginary crystal ball, I'm going to leave the conversation there, but thank you very much for joining us on the SABC. Again, Reitumetse Phiri, a legal expert, chatting about the dynamics unfolding this coming week. Reinstated Johannesburg Mayor Dr Mpho Phalatse could face another motion of no confidence within a matter of days. Again, Speaker of the Johannesburg Council has given notice of a council meeting which is set for the 3rd of November. In fact, this coming Thursday, with the motion of no confidence against Dr Phalatse.